Right, let's get started. Okay, so this is the Ubuntu Delta review for the kernel for NATI. The purpose of this session is to review all of the patches that we carry that are not upstream, why we carry them, whether they're still relevant, whether we should change it to something else, whether we can get rid of them, and to generally hassle the owners of patches we're carrying that aren't upstream to upstream them where appropriate. Obviously not everything can be upstream, not everything makes sense upstream, but as a general rule we try to reduce the stuff that's old and crufty and push it upstream so we don't have to maintain it any longer. We're going to look at we generally split the Delta into two pieces, the Ubuntu drivers, which are the things that we've wholesale backported or wholesale picked up from vendor trees or wherever, which represent whole pieces of functionality as a unit. So we don't generally think of those as single patches. Plus we're going to then review just the individual sort of fixes and stuff, and those are the ones that have got the biggest probability of going upstream. So we had 677 patches at the end of last cycle, of which about 280 are now upstream, all these here. Not very exciting. But all of that lot we've now got rid of because of upstream. The first thing I really want to look at is the Ubuntu drivers. We currently have about 10 drivers we've been carrying. First thing is AUFS. We still need a union mount solution. Bit of background what's going on with that. AUFS is still being developed, which is a good thing. So we actually just received some patches that should get it working in 2636. I think we'll be planning to get that working because right now we have quite a lot of some of the stuff you do uses it. Oh yeah, all those. Said talking to security people.
Well, not just security, but like everyone who's using S-build infrastructure is switched to AUFS because it performs so much better than LVM snapshots.
Right, so there's definitely a lot of use cases. I actually started to collect them together and don't have them with me.
Where does Val's union mount stuff?
I was just about to get onto that. Upstream has been saying a long time that VFS is the only way to do it. They tried to do it with VFS union mounts for about a year and a half now. The problem is you can do a union mount as long as you're willing to change user semantics in a way that breaks POSIX, which pretty much we aren't willing to do. There is currently a third try, which is OverlayFS, which is changing the VFS to make it easier, but still having a file system component, which allows them to keep the semantic. And it's a very small patch set. It doesn't currently work perfectly, but I've, for example, managed to lay it down over a Cheroot and upgrade. That works. I can't get a CD to boot yet.
What's the status of that one? Upstream?
No, it's being discussed upstream, but it's not upstream.
Is that Val's stuff?
No, it's somebody else. Val is working on it as well, though. So I think it's probably the next most likely thing to get in, but it's certainly not going to be ready this cycle. It's something we can probably consider for the next cycle. So I think we're stuck with AUFS, which is gargantuan and leans all over everywhere and changes everything. But we're hopeful to have that working out. Hopefully next week I'll get to try and apply those patches and see if it fixes it all up.
What's their status as far as trying to get? Are they trying to go upstream? Or?
AUFS has definitely decided not to try. They've been rejected too many times. The problem with AUFS is it's incredibly featureful, which is it's overkill for 99% of the use cases, and so upstream just wants something similar. And the nice thing about OverlayFS is it's stackable, but you stack it by stacking multiple mounts. You don't have magical addition and subtraction of stacking layers on the fly and stuff. So it's a much, much simpler solution. But anyway, as I say, I think for now we're stuck with it. So we'll just get that working and move on. Right, LORC, that apparently has gone into the kernel now. So that's gone away, I think, in your 36 rebase, isn't it?
Yep.
So it's gone in the sense that we're not carrying it as a separate Delta anymore.
And it's still in staging though?
I believe it's currently in staging. But from our point of view, that actually doesn't make any difference. Once it becomes sufficient quality not to be in staging, it'll move across. But the code we were pulling, we were actually running this code, I think. It was 36RC1's code, we were running in 35 anyway.
Right. So conflict and rebase was bringing staging work from 2636, so I just dropped it.
Yeah. So that one's trivial. We're just dropping it because we don't need it anymore. DMRAID 4.5. Does anybody know anything about that? Did it survive the rebase?
That I don't know. You probably want to have it.
Yeah.
Because we've tried to get rid of it.
No, there's quite a few users. Whenever you use that built-in RAID things,
Yeah.
sort of
Fake
from
RAID.
fake RAIDs, yeah, you need that to make it happen in Linux.
It would survive because it's external,
Right.
but it also compiles.
So I mean, the question is why is that not upstream? It's so useful.
Because LSDAIR is so resistant to change,
So it's an upstream maintainer issue.
I guess.
So I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe
it's the funny thing that both are at Red Hat and it doesn't happen.
oh, common.
Well, have you tried to get something into device member?
No. I can imagine that's quite painful. So I guess we'll keep that if it's working. I don't really know how we find out if it's working. Because presumably it's specific for specific hardware, isn't it?
Well, main boards that offer a RAID functionality but don't have a real RAID driver. So it's mainly the user space parts to detect it and device mapper target to implement the RAID 5.
But really what I meant is we don't have one, probably, because it's not something you can test on every machine. You actually need a machine with that.
Well, I guess I have a machine, but I don't normally use those setups.
Wow,
You do have a machine.
Aren't those gigabyte motherboards? Something
They're
like
in
that?
all kinds of things.
Yeah.
They're in all kinds of things, but they're usually lower and like weird mid-low
Yeah.
stuff.
So basically, I don't set it up that way, but I use the MD RAID
Right.
only for Linux. That would be if you want to use the RAID thing in Windows and in Linux.
Okay, so it's if you want...
It's a soft RAID, effectively,
Right.
like, implemented sort of in the BIOS.
I'm just more concerned
Well,
about
sort of
that.
like, I think they only have like the headers or the disk information that makes you assemble the drives
Right.
is supported by the BIOS. But
That's it.
to use it actually, you need a driver in the operating system
as well. So basically we have no way to test this.
I probably
I know-
could. I mean,
I know that Luke has done a bunch of work with it in the past, so
Yeah.
if he needed someone.
I'm just worried about carrying a driver that, if the only thing I can do is pull it forward and see if it still compiles and then hope for the best, which is going to maintain your data on disk. That's a bit of a concern, things we supporting it all.
but actually I have some machine, some motherboard at home which offers that, so I could
I guess
get some
maybe we
using
should
drives
find
and
out,
then shove them in and try.
What I mean is Luke did all the user space side of this to support it, so he may actually have multiple different types of hardware to test it. So.
Well, that's a good street team, but I wonder if we should be reliant on that, or we should be getting cert to buy one.
Right.
Or maybe they have one, and
They have one.
And they are
probably,
testing it.
yeah.
because now they're testing every kernel, obviously. Okay, so we need that, apparently. iSCSI, is that still external?
Still external, still compiles, but I think
Didn't
the
it-
infrastructure is starting to go in
And just,
mainline. It'll
Yeah.
probably be something different than iSCSI.
right. So,
But that wasn't something that has moved into DKMS package for.
no, I don't think so. They were pretty resistant to DKMS.
Oh. Actually, you're right. There is a DKMS package that supersedes this.
Oh, is there?
Oh.
But I thought when I asked to rip it out, they said, no, we're using the current version because you've updated it.
Something like that.
So I think so can we take action to talk to 17 whether they still need it?
Mm.
And if not, if they do, we update it to the latest probably. Because I suspect there's a newer version of that available. Where's Manjo? Not here. In the pool. Yeah. Realtek network controller, we still seem to be carrying that. I guess it needs updating.
Hang a second.
Why isn't that in the staging tree?
Because it's so appalling even they won't take it.
Really?
Yeah, no,
Presumably.
seriously, it's so bad you can trigger the stack detector in the kernel by running IWPRIV.
Yeah.
It's
Do you have what to keep it in your kernel? It's so bad.
Stack Detector got it.
We put it in for OEM.
Yeah, I assume we actually have a genuine use case for it.
Have you checked where they changed? Like,
Since the new version.
like sneaked into staging?
Yeah, okay, so we
Well, there's like 3 different versions.
investigate whether it's in staging.
There's like 3 versions of that
DKS.
driver, and 2 are in staging, and 1 is open.
I know, yeah. But
I had the feeling that, yeah, there's 81, 92, something else is in somewhere, but
Well,
not
S,
SE.
just S is in the staging, I think.
Right.
So I was looking at it because Steve Langsick had that card. Tim, did he give that to you? Okay.
Yeah, so there's SE, SU, E, and U, but no SE.
Right.
Or anyone, any 2 SE, which is
Right.
mini PCI.
okay.
And that's the device he gave you that he couldn't get working on his
Right.
system because it wouldn't talk over mumble.
But yeah, something about QoS bits, wasn't it? Didn't he
Something.
work out?
Yeah, it's dropping QoS bit in the IP header.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
like, what the hell are they doing?
And yeah, if I can run NWPRIV and crash the kernel, your driver is bad.
Which is presumably why it's not even
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess we need to confirm that OEM requirement still exists
Make them fix it.
and potentially updated its kill switch. What? We're still carrying it. I assume it's not changed.
I think that must be so old esoteric hardware that the minute you rip it out, somebody comes and claims it's still in use.
Yeah, it's completely beyond me that the entire RF kill infrastructure has changed and moved on, and that driver still works, because I know we've never changed it.
Well, they basically just directly go into the BIOS and do some calls for those.
Yeah.
And we may have some overlap in platform drivers now, so we should review what those apply to.
For the FSAM and the, well, in fact, the 6, 7, and 8, the FSAM 7400 Omnibook and the RF kill drivers.
Right, because I know a lot of Toshiba stuff has gone upstream. And Matthew Garrett's doing a lot of platform work. Yeah.
So I think the last time I looked at that, it was like very specific older laptop models which probably had a non-standard way of doing things.
Oh, that's good. So, actually, there's one more, there's 11, which going on with the formatting. Okay, so 6, 7, and 8 we'll just call, we're going to review and update as necessary. NDIS, I can't imagine we we're ready to get rid of that yet.
I don't think we'll,
I thought there was a UMS package for the driver stuff. Actually, I know for a fact for this because
Whose is that?
someone from the community threw it together and is maintaining it. So,
So can we put down to investigate why there's a separate one, and
yeah.
because otherwise it needs updating. Comp cache. Actually, we need to have a chat with Foundations about that, because
Oliver,
RZ, whatever it's called, replaces that, and the only reason we're still carrying this in this cycle was because in last cycle they couldn't get user space changed in time, it was too late. But I think it's called RZ swap or something, the driver. It's the same identical driver, but the user space tools have a different semantic. So for Comcache, I think we can drop it, but we need to talk to Foundations about that.
What's the guy about?
Hardware kernel and introductory.
And then App Armor is a slam dunk, that's gone because it's upstream.
Not a full slam dunk.
What?
There's still compatibility patches, which is what I was asking about.
Yeah, for the LTS
But they probably appear somewhere else.
Oh, they do.
Probably, but do at the moment.
Okay.
Yes, presumably we're going to keep carrying the. I assume that's actually still in there when you rebased it, wouldn't have conflicted. I think I saw there was just one App Armor patch, though,
yeah, I dropped all that armor stuff.
including the compatibility one.
We need the compatibility
We need that
for
for
the LTS backports.
Yeah, for LTS backwards, not because of anything else. Have you just written
No,
that word?
need it for functionality. It doesn't. It contains some networking mediation and contains interfaces for loading the parser.
So it's
Yeah.
not compatibility at all.
No, it's
That's the
actually
extra function
also, I think that probably that's additional things that
So the 2.4 compatibility
Go to
patch
upstream,
got
yeah.
dropped.
Okay, so we need
Because it applied to an external driver.
because
So we need to apply it to the internal version, right?
Yeah, I pasted the URL to it.
Okay, so we just need to get that back.
I'm sure John will be on that, but I mean, the problem is that they wouldn't take the network mediation as it existed, and they wouldn't take the interface as it existed. So, and since both of those required very different people to look at them,
Right.
John deferred on those because they're a whole different game and just get the main bulk of the core elements in, but there were plans on that, and I was going to be working at the interface elements.
So this will be important for my LTS backport.
Yes. Well, and everything. But isn't there one that's specific to older user space as well?
Yeah, I think there's two things.
Yeah.
John said this morning that there's also a compact patch thing, which is needed for those backport codes.
Yeah, it's all sort of lumped under the name Compat Patch.
Oh, okay. So it's a dual purpose.
Yeah, there are 3 batches in the chunk.
Right. Okay. So we'll make sure we've got those. And get fresh ones, probably.
Oh, yes, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about, anyway, that Compat Patch is not an issue for Lucy because Lucy's getting us a view of the fixes in user space, but it was user space compatibility issue.
Okay.
But it's okay.
So we have a bunch of patches. Look, moving on to the patches now. We have a bunch of patches for creating the Ubuntu directory and stuff like that. All of which are going to obviously keep because they're things that shouldn't go upstream. Version, signature, those kinds of things are just not upstream interest.
Is that number 7 in that list?
What about it?
What does that do?
Number 7, it allows you to have a bunch of drivers on PowerPCs so that you get whatever's in there compiled as well. Otherwise you don't get it.
So why is that a PowerPC specific thing?
Because it's the only port, so that's
Right.
the way the text ended up. Because it wasn't enabled on any of the ports, but it was enabled on PowerPC, but it didn't include it, so it didn't actually do anything. Yes, I mean, you're right, the on PowerPC words are actually of no meaning. They don't, it's not PowerPC specific at all.
It's a port specific.
It's port specific, yeah. I mean, we now have a section of patches, which is the stuff that probably should go upstream. I don't think I necessarily want to go through them all. I think that there's purpose to that. What we really need to do is get the people who own them to review them, work out if we still need them, and push them upstream as appropriate, or let us know which ones to keep. I mean, for example, for myself, I've got the BT handoff patches, a whole bunch of patches to do with asynchronous boot that should go upstream by now. What we do need to do is find some owners for the ones that actually belong to Argent. Where?
Dual boot, or the parallel boot.
Yeah, I've got ownership of those. I'll take ownership of those. So I'll deal with the ones that belong to Serbia as well, because they should go up as a set, saying this makes boot faster as this set. We've got a lot of quirks, so I think really what I want to do is find people to look at the upstream ones and the Argent, things like Argent's ones. But if your name's on those lists, I'd like to look at them and report that. I expect a lot from you.
Do you want me to check out?
My stuff's upstream,
Oh, your head should have got your lot.
because it's upstream.
Yeah.
Is there nothing for you?
No, but there is Entrig stuff that is more for Henrik or Rafi too. And there's one for Rafi up there, I saw.
Okay, so the one
Back up.
the one for me is already
Yeah, that's already
in
upstream.
the Linus branch. The ones from Henrik, I've already written a replacement for upstream.
So it's possible that this list is now out of date with respect to the merge window, because this is against 36 as it released, and of course now we've got 37 merges going in, so this list will naturally shrink. But we can regenerate it once you get to 36 RC1 or so, just to confirm what's left.
Oh. What does it mean by wiggle?
It means that it had to be fixed up slightly to be patched in.
Probably somebody used Wiggle to install to apply it.
Okay.
I don't know where you saw that.
It's
Okay.
a commit.
But it's gone.
So Rafi's, those ones were all on. That's good. So yeah, there was a whole bunch of.
Oh, there's some of mine, the upstream commits, but what does that mean it's upstream?
It means it has an upstream commit ID in it, which means it ought to be upstream, which means it's
Ah,
the ones in this section hadn't dropped
Yeah.
at the time I took this, but they should be. We should be expecting them to drop very soon because they are already up to script. I mean, essentially, I don't care about any of the ones in this bit because they are upstream. They are something we're going to get in the future. So us carrying them should be almost risk-free, or as risk-free as upgrading. And I expect, actually, in Tim's latest release, these are probably all gone.
I think so.
Question I'm not asking.
Yeah.
Huh?
38,
No, we were never targeting 37. The decision was only taken yesterday, and our current plan, it's looking like 38 will be possible, but we will make a final decision sometime towards the end of January once we definitely know when 37 released. But we're expecting 38 to release at least 3 weeks before kernel freeze, so there's no obvious reason not to go to 38, and that was good for ARM, where a lot of the ARM work should hit for 38. We should reduce the size of our ARM branches. So,
Okay. So any feedback doing like editing that wiki document or?
yeah, I mean, feel free to put dispositions under each one in the wiki document. I think it's the right way forward. We'll do a sweep through in a few weeks' time to see what's not been done and hassle people and drop things.
On my LSM is sort of spurious there. It's not upstream. It doesn't look like it's going upstream just yet.
Yeah, I don't know how that's ended up down there because this was electronically generated.
Which one?
This list was up. Where's Yarn?
32.
32. But it has an upstream ID, so whoever put that in the tree, it has up blah 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 upstream.
It was briefly upstream.
It was James
then that's
Moore's
how it
tree
happened.
for about 2 days.
But so whoever put that in did it wrong because they put it in with an upstream ID when it actually wasn't in Lewis's tree. So it's ended up in
There's
this
been a
section.
few that, like my Magic Mouse stuff, it went in where it said, this is the ID in this person's tree, the hid input maintainer.
So it probably is labeled correctly and it's all it's done wrong. But I don't think we particularly need to go through any of these unless you think we need to go through them individually.
You were saying update the wiki.
Yes.
Is there, like, what would you want to see?
Yeah, so sticker like a star and what you did with it.
Okay.
You know,
Under,
please-
under each one?
Yeah, if you want to, I mean, even if it's, we definitely need this, or please drop this, and then we'll spin through and apply those. In fact, can you put some action items down for me to do that? And we probably should do action items for all the main owners, obviously,
Yeah.
only people within
I
the
just put a general,
Ubuntu.
but I'll add each of them.
Well, I can do that.
I can do items if you like.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't really know why they ended up with his name on.
What is your preference for how I should handle the YAML, or rather its features?
Well, personally, I feel we're in your hands. If you think we need YAML for security, then we carry it, and we should put it actually under the Ubuntu drivers heading, even though I don't think we should put it in the Ubuntu directory. Because I know how hard it is to make an LSM not be in the right direction. It's too hard. But we should start counting that as an Ubuntu driver and list it in the Ubuntu Delta when we talk about it.
I'd
I
like to see it go
assume
screen, but like
That's your
not time.
recommendation, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Keep it. I mean, it has 3 functionalities that I think are important. They just
That's
happen
the-
to all be under one name.
That's the thing that gives us like ptrace being a bit more difficult to use and things, isn't it? Yeah. In fact, perhaps when you edit the thing, you could just lift those 3 patches up into the Ubuntu driver section and say, yes, we need it.
How do you prefer that up here? Because really it could just be one thing. I mean, really it's one patch. Here's the file, done. It was only broken up because of the history of how it got developed.
Well, I mean, I'm quite happy to keep it in the form that's most convenient for you, and I think it's I would recommend you keep it in an upstreamable form.
Right.
So that we can start requesting it be taken upstream. I don't understand that given the other crap that's in the kernel under LSM, I mean, how many other LSMs that nobody even knows what they are in there? 3, exactly. So why can't we have a 4th one? It's beyond me. You're going to be at Plumbers next week. Damn it. Who do we need to hassle at Plumbers? Talk to me after and we'll figure out who I should whine at.
Alhero.
What if I should just shout the spoon? Right. Okay. Is there anything else we need to talk about? for the Delta review? Does anybody have anything? Think we should, any extra drivers you think we should be carrying? I've not had any compelling requests. I usually ask OEM at this stage if there's any upcoming. They know they're going to be shipping 500 machines with an RTL 8192 SE, which is one that's in there.
Since it's shipped by default in the new X201Ss, and the Chief Bossette has one.
Chris and I are also going to talk about, there's a few drivers that we're looking at.
Well, I mean, what we want from your side of the team is recommendations if there are the odd driver that it would really be beneficial to carry for a large number of years.
Yeah, can you add an action item for me to report back to the platform?
And see, Tim, I felt you got cut off without me knowing whether there was a specific driver you had in mind when you were saying that.
8192 SE.
Oh, it is the 8192 SE, right? So we already have that one.
We have it in the Ubuntu directory, it's not in staging, so we gotta go check the OEM sources and see if there's an update that hits either shed, so.
Yeah.
We gotta make it work well enough that it, doesn't crash at least.
Right. Can't we just take the machine apart by different parts?
We should just mention your
We should just borrow it just for some boot.
Well, I have a card. No.
Oh, you've got a card?
Yeah, Lincolnshire gave me one, so when I get
So you can
home,
downgrade yourself.
I have a broken laptop that should work just fine. Intently, it's popped so many
I've got
times.
some stick which needs an SDA driver. Can I get that in?
A what?
Like an SDA driver from Realtek side. Can I
I
get
think
that
that
in?
should be DKMS.
That's probably true. And none of those supported by wireless backwards? No.
Was one of these new stuff thing.
Give it the stick, I'll be I've got one of those too, doesn't work. Right, I think if there's no others, I think that's the most important thing we can get is advice. I mean, I'm hoping the answer is none, because we don't want to carry any drivers that we can avoid, but if there are, ones that are going to have high penetration is the big worry.
We're going to see if ideally we can get them just clean up enough to go upstream and then forget about it. But
I mean,
secondarily, if we can get them into Ubuntu, like the Ubuntu directory, then
right. I mean, we don't want to be carrying loads of GKMS packages if we can avoid it, if it's a lot of systems.
Yeah.
Any others? Cool. Well, I think that's that then. Presumably got some, whatever the word is, action items. Cool. Thank you, people. Call the session over.